And I was reflecting on that, and a lot of things that he said, they were not, those are the things that I had heard before, but the way he said it made a significant impact, and I don't know why, but I think it has something to do with the fact that the thing that he said, he genuinely believed, and it came from his heart. So I was touched by some of the things he said, and I was at a party yesterday where this is what I was talking about, the wealth, culture, children's spirituality challenge of how to motivate the next generation and stuff. And I don't know what he's going to talk about today, but I'm looking forward to hearing that. And thank you all for coming. Thank you.
Thank you, Ren. Thank you for this introduction. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. A warm welcome to you all. His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj, His Grace Vaisheshika Prabhu, Nirakula Devidasi, the Honorable Thai global members, industry leaders from the Silicon Valley, industry leaders from the hospitality industry, professionals from the IT industry, Stanford University alumni, distinguished guests. Thank you all for being here this morning. My name is Rajesh Talwar and I serve as the president of the Artha Forum. Artha Forum is an online community that actually connects spirited entrepreneurs to come together, pool in their resources, help society. Basically, we bring to you the relevance of ancient wisdom, modern business. That is the whole idea, basically, today. I have with me here my colleague Rajiv. Rajiv, please stand up. Just Rajiv and Sanjeev. A very brief mention I would like to make about. Now, Rajiv, Sanjeev, and Kushal. Kushal is a managing director of a power group of industries. Three of them, about 20 years ago, they got together and they formed a very small venture called Apar Infotech. Within a year, this venture ran into losses of $4 million. And they were thinking they would shut down. And Radhanath Swami happened to come there in Pittsburgh, and they were driving down from the hills of West Virginia, and Maharaj wanted to use the restroom. So Rajiv said, Maharaj, why don't we go up to my office? It's just round the block. So they went up. And then they saw, Maharaj came out, he went to each of those rooms. And he said, so this is your office? I said, yes, Maharaj, we just trying to. And there was turmoil inside because he wanted to break the news that I'm going to shut down. So Maharaj went through all the rooms and he said, Rajiv, I bless you and I bless your enterprise. And then there was no looking back. Seriously. There was no looking back, because then one thing led to another. A fledgling small infotech company then was, in Warburg Pincus invested in them. They went, they really increased in size, and finally Rajiv sold it for a very hefty sum. The thing is, the beauty of that is they had incorporated charity at the core of the business. And I'm going to touch upon this a little bit more. But before I even begin, I want to introduce His Grace Vaisheshika Prabhu and Nirakula Mataji. Vaisheshika Prabhu is the president of ISKCON San Jose. They have a brand new temple coming up now at Mountain View. The grand opening is actually next month on 6th and 7th. I would request you to all go there. He's a very dynamic person. He has the Stanford Bhakti Yoga Club and many other nice programs going around. I would request you to spend some time with him after the program is over. He's a very interesting person. We also have here with us Shamsundar Prabhu. Is Shamsundar Prabhu here? Yeah. Shamsundar Prabhu is one of the earliest disciples of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who is the founder Acharya of ISKCON, which is popularly known as the Hare Krishna movement. In fact, Shamsundar Prabhu is credited with introducing Krishna consciousness to the Beatles group. Paul McCartney, Ringo Starr, George Harrison, all of them. In fact, George Harrison remained a lifelong friend. Just before George Harrison passed away, Shyamsundar Prabhu was the only person who actually met him. They remained lifelong friends. He's put up a very beautiful film on Journey Home, which is the journey of Maharaj. I'll speak a little bit about that as well. And towards the end, we are also going to film it. We're going to show it to you. He's here with his friend Stuart. Is Stuart here? So Stuart and Shyamsundar Prabhu are actually making this film. You might want to talk to them once this is over. And so Artha Forum actually began as a small endeavor. We had a first program in Vada, which is the Govardhan Eco Village. It's about 75 miles northwest of Bombay, where some of the Silicon Valley entrepreneurs attended that program. We have here Ron and Rashmikant and of course Sushant. Where's Sushant? Sorry, Sushant is right here. So they attended that program, Maharaj. It was a 2-day conclave. And after attending, they said, well, Silicon Valley needs this kind of thing. You should come here and do it. And actually that is the reason why we are conducting this particular program here. Of course, this would all have not been possible without the gracious help of Venk Shukla, the president of TIE Global. Venk, we are very thankful to you for facilitating, arranging this. Last month, Rajiv and I, we were in Singapore. We attended the Asia Venture Philanthropy Network, AVPN conference there. Some 340 people turned out from some 32 countries. Basically, it was a impact investment first, sustainable development, and venture philanthropy and all those things. I was amazed to see how so many people are now getting concerned about giving back to society what you've received. So, ladies and gentlemen, I don't want to sermonize. I'm not here. That prerogative is of Radhanath Swami Maharaj. Actually, if anything, I feel very humbled. You're all very experienced, right? And even a little nervous. But I feel there must be some background information. I need to give that to you before we actually begin. Now, many of us wonder, what is a Swami doing here in TIE Global, right? This was the same question which was asked at the world headquarters of HSBC just in the recent few months ago. Maharaj went to the world headquarters of HSBC in London and addressed about 850 investment bankers. Now, the most brilliant people in HSBC, and they all wanted to know, why we invited a Swami? What is he doing here? And then Maharaj spoke to them for a couple of hours. They were mesmerized. They gave him a standing ovation. And ever since that time, Maharaj has been going to HSBC. He's gone but a couple of times there. They want to meet him, and even the chairman emeritus, who's based out of Switzerland, he had a meeting with Radhanath Maharaj. Thing is, consulting spiritual leaders is actually a necessity. We have such a heads down focus sometimes. We actually forget. We may be able to cut the woods very swiftly and efficiently, but sometimes, we don't come to know that we're in the wrong jungle. Or climb the ladders and not realize that the ladder is leaning against the wrong wall. So we need guidance. We all need. Let's cross our hearts. Every one of us here will admit that at some point of time or the other, your life goes out of sync. Right? Great kings, chivalrous kings, even Maharaj Yudhishthir, Parikshit Maharaj 5,000 years ago, they consulted rishis, they consulted spiritual leaders, and he was Chakravarti Samrat of the entire planet. And they would consult and find out, how should we conduct our lives? How should we live as statesmen? What is there that needs to be done? Actually, from the time statesmen, politicians, kings, they stopped consulting spiritual leaders, they actually lost their valor. They lost their resolve to make things happen in a good way. As leaders, we also need that. See, leadership depends on affection. It is stirring the deep currents in the hearts and minds of people. Leadership means affection. Affection comes from good behavior. Good behavior will come from the quality of relationships that you have. This is very foundational. And to understand that, you need guidance. You need spiritual help. And that is what the topic of today is, the culture of wealth. That's what we're going to actually speak about. As I mentioned to you, philanthropy, social change, impact, investing, sustainable development, but that all remains at a superficial level. What we actually need to understand is why we do what we do. At a molecular level, what is required? And I said I won't summarize, but I must tell you a few axiomatic truths. See, for wealth to grow, it must be shared. It can't grow. And not just that, if you understand clearly, once your basic needs are met, after that, wealth cannot bring more happiness unless it is shared. Once you at least meet all your basic needs, then you have to go out and reach out, give back to society. As they say, that from what you earn, you make a living, but from what you give, you actually make a life. That's really important. So Artha Forum intends to take you deeper on that level. We are so hung up now on personality ethics. Character has taken a back seat, right? So personality is important. How much you can impress, how much you can, talk and give, and sign a deal. Nobody even talks about character. Nobody even talks about how that wealth is sacred, what needs to be done with that particular wealth. That means, as they say, to live, to love, to learn, and to leave a legacy. All four are important. Physical needs, social needs, mental needs, and spiritual needs. All important. If you don't do badly, if you don't do well, even in one of those departments, your life is going to, all your energy is going to go down. You need to do well in all these four departments. To live, to love, to learn, and to leave a legacy. Now, why we are here? We actually need your help. We're not talking of telling you to loosen your purse strings and give us money. No, that's not the intention. What I mean by that is, here's a platform. We'll tell you how we engage. And I'm going to tell Rajiv to speak a little bit how to build charity at the core of your business model. If you want your charity to survive. Then Rajiv, Sanjeev and Kushal met Maharaj the first time when they were just about starting. So he said, Maharaj, do you have some instruction for us? Maharaj said, yes. Do your business without greed and pride. And don't get implicated in sin if you want your wealth to last generations. Very profound, very simple, but he laid the foundation to that whole thing, and which is something they've been actually following all this time. So we have partners, we're a private equity fund, and we have partners, we have IT and IT-enabled service business, right? And many of our co-investors, the condition for our co-investors is that we will invest with you provided you upfront provide some of the upside towards charity. We don't do business unless you also build that. We're not saying, do it for our charities, but some charity that you feel very dear. So we're just starting Everest Basil Hospitality Fund. We have Ron Pitambar here. Ron is a very special person. He's himself a very pious person, very spiritually connected. And he attended our Artha Forum in Bombay, and he was very excited. Then he got talking to us and said, let's do something together. We need people who actually understand why we need to do what we do. So we're all, Sushant and Ron are going to be working with Basil Partners. So I just wanted you to know that. And Rajiv and Sanjeev and I have known Radhanath Swami Maharaj for 30 years, and we've been his disciples, we've been following him. It is an honor for me to introduce Radhanath Swami to you. So Radhanath Swami Maharaj is a spiritual leader and a social reformer. He is a very much sought after motivational speaker. In fact, Maharaj has been called twice to the UK Parliament. He has addressed the House of Lords. One as recently as just a month ago. He has been invited there. He's spoken to some of the ultra high net worth individuals in London at the St. James. In fact, as you know, you probably saw the picture earlier, your President Barack Obama and the Indian ex-President Mrs. Pratibha Patil, they invited Maharaj to exchange some views. And heads of states, heads of nations have been actually calling. Maharaj was at the Microsoft headquarters in Seattle. He is visited practically every major American university. In fact, he's slated to speak at Stanford University tomorrow and at the Google headquarters on Tuesday. We invite you if you like to come. There are some leaflets lying outside, you can, see. Now before we actually begin, I'd like you to see a small 1-minute snippet about Radhanath Swami, and then we will request Maharaj to speak on the culture of wealth. Some housekeeping announcements. There's a restroom on this side, and lunch is going to be served. So please do not go without having lunch. There's water on both sides in case you need it. And kindly let us have your visiting cards at the entrance there. There is Himanshu, he will be collecting. So we'll just stay in touch, we'll keep you informed about our other programs. Anytime later, you can just leave your visiting cards there. If you don't have your visiting card, maybe just give your name and your email ID. Thank you so much. We just play this thing and then we'll request Radhanath Swami Maharaj to give his lecture. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj with a round of applause. Can we have the lights on, please? We put that column mic.
ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाखाया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमः ॐ विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामी नित्य नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी हस्तद्यते सधारिणे। श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैता गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौर भक्तवृंद। Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. I'm very happy and honored to be with all of you today. Special gratitude to the president of our Thai organization, Sushant, for bringing me here, to Rajiv and Sanjeev, and Rajesh for the organization, to Vaisheshikaji, who is one of my dearest friends. I was asked to speak on the subject of the responsibility of wealth. As I was sitting here, my mind went back a couple of years. I was invited to speak at the Michael Milken Global Conference at the Beverly Hilton Hotel. And I was invited to one panel discussion where several of the most powerful leaders in the fields of America and international business were discussing what is real leadership. There was the CEO of Safeway Foods. There was one lady who was the CEO of the largest cancer research organization in the world. There was Steve Wynn, who owns big hotels in Las Vegas and all over the world. There was Joe Torre, who was one of the history's greatest baseball managers. It's quite and I wasn't on the panel, but there was a Swami there listening, so it was quite full of variety. What interested me is at the conclusion of this very, very insightful and sincere exploration of what real leadership is. Mahatma Gandhi was quoted 3 times. That was the culmination. Steve Wynn said that his model of leadership are the words of Gandhi. And he quoted, "There go my people. I have to follow them because I am their leader." And then they put on one of these computer screens a quote by Gandhi, "First they will ignore you, then they will laugh at you, then they will persecute or attack you, and then you will win." And then the culmination was Gandhi's words, "Be the change you want to see in the world." Michael Milken asked Joe Torre, "You are one of the 3 greatest baseball managers in history. Before you came to the New York Yankees, they had not been in a playoff in 11 years. After you came, they were in 9 playoffs and won 4 World Series. And when you came, all the press said it was a great mistake and you were useless. Said, of all that you have accomplished, plus you're in the Hall of Fame for when you played yourself, what do you feel was the greatest accomplishment that you made in your life?" He turned to the lady next to him and said, she helps people with cancer. I've done nothing compared to that. And Milton said, well, there's a lot of Yankee fans out here. There's 3,000 people in this ballroom, and they think you have done something. He said, well, if there's anything that has given me fulfillment and I feel I have actually accomplished in this world, it's not those things. He said, when I was a child living up in New York City, my home was so abusive. I think his father was an alcoholic. He said, I suffered so miserably as a little child. He said, the only relief and release for me is to go out and play baseball. And that's how I became such a great baseball player. Just releasing all the frustration, fear, and pain that was in my heart in catching and throwing those balls. And then I became a manager and won so many World Series. He says, but what really I accomplished is I started an organization in the inner city schools of New York to help children who are suffering from abusive homes. And when I see these children who suffer the way I suffered, and they have some direction, and they actually feel that somebody values and appreciates them and likes them, and I see their smile, that is far greater than all I've done in my professional career. And then he said something that moved me. He said, and this whole organization was not my idea, it was my wife's idea. She's taken the leadership. Now, this is, of course, on a very relative level, but what really brings fulfillment to our life? Anandamayo Vyashat, the Brahma Sutra tells, which means every living being is seeking pleasure. That's the motivating force behind trying to develop power, wealth, influence, and all the very sensual pleasures that may come with it. It's a search for pleasure. The only pleasure there is for the heart is the pleasure of love. To love and to be loved. That is the fundamental need of everyone. The Brahma Sutra also says, Janmadisyayataha, that the origin of everything that exists is Bhagavan, or Krishna, or God. And the origin of that propensity to love is our natural, innate love for God. Because we are not just these bodies, which are like cars. Some people drive Fords, and some people drive Mercedes, and some people drive Ambassadors. But the person driving, he has different needs than the car that he's driving. The car needs gasoline, oil, tune-ups, and we have to do that because that's our vehicle. It serves a purpose. But the person needs food. So this Atma, this living force, this soul that's within us, its greatest need is to be reconnected with its own nature, or with God, through love. When we understand this principle, then we understand the foundation of Vedic wisdom and how it can apply to every aspect of life, even in this modern world. According to the Vedic culture, wealth is sacred. Now, sometimes Swamis don't speak like that. They say it's Maya, it's illusion, it's all temporary. But in the Bhakti tradition, wealth is sacred. Because wealth is the energy of Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune, the feminine energy of love, of the divine, Narayan. When we understand how this sacred energy of wealth is connected with the source, with Krishna or with God, then we can actually realize the sacredness of our wealth. But when we forget that, and we see the wealth in terms of my own selfishness, my own arrogance, my own greed, then that is called Maya, or illusion. It's not that the wealth is an illusion, it's our perception of it that is an illusion. You see, everything in this creation is potentially either good or bad according to the consciousness of the person who's using it. An example, a simple knife. A criminal will take that knife and slash somebody's throat to steal their money for himself. A surgeon will take the same knife and save a person's life. Is the knife good or bad? The knife is as good as or bad as the person's consciousness who is using it. And in the same world, in the same way, everything within this world is potentially sacred, that can uplift all of humanity and all living beings, or could cause great destruction. Technology. Technology can create the most vicious weapons for terrorists. And technology can also spread love of God. Spread compassion all over the world. The same buttons. The same science. Ancient wisdom is the wisdom of how we can change our hearts, individually and collectively, so we can be in this world but not of this world. Are any of you familiar with the Bible? Recently I was at the House of Lords speaking, just last month. And one man, he was a lord, one of the most powerful entrepreneurs of Westminster. And he wanted to speak just a couple minutes about how business, investment, and wealth were very complementary with spirituality. And he gave two historical biblical references. He said there was a person named Noah. Have you heard of Noah? Noah's Ark? He said there was a person named Noah, and he taught us how to keep our stock afloat even during liquidation. And he said, and there was a man named John the Baptist, and he taught us how we could go down to the River Jordan to make a prophet. The prophet is Jesus. He gave him initiation or baptism. In the Bhagavad Gita, there's a beautiful explanation that my guru, Srila Prabhupada, would call the peace formula. How we can be in this world fully active and dynamic and productive and competitive while not being of this world. Coming from a place of love rather than greed. compassion rather than envy, humility rather than arrogance. This verse from Bhagavad Gita, which he called the peace formula, is from the 5th chapter. Bhoktaram jagatapasam sarva lokamaheshwaram suhridam sarva bhutanam gyatvam shanti richati. That if you want to achieve real peace, real fulfillment, we must understand how Ishvara, the supreme source of everything that exists, or God, who we call Krishna, is the proprietor of everything that exists. And we are trustees, we are caretakers. And that means our own body. This body is God's property. It is to be used in harmony with God's will for the welfare of myself, my family, my society, and all beings. We were discussing the other night, this is not my wife or my husband or my children or my parents. That's not the substance of it. That's there on a relative level. These are God's children that are entrusted in my care, and there is a great responsibility of the example that I set for them. And my wealth. It's God's wealth in my care. You see, in a true sense, proprietorship means control. And what do we really have control over? By the power of time, everything will be taken away from us. Time is so mystical. You can't taste it, you can't see it, you can't touch it. But it's so powerful that time will burn out the sun, will dry up every ocean, will pulverize into fine powder every planet in the universe. And time will take away, on a physical level, everything we have and everyone we have. So what do we really own? Everything is owned by the Absolute, by the Supreme. We are trustees. Yes, we work. And that work is our duty. It is our responsibility. But what comes to us, we can either use it with greed, with lust, with envy, with arrogance. And Gita explains all those qualities, they burn like fire. The more you feed them, the more hungry and hotter the fire burns. Well, we could use them with love, with compassion, with humility. And that's this message of the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna didn't tell Arjuna, go to the Himalayan caves and meditate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. He said, no, it is your duty. You must fight this battle. But to do it with integrity and compassion. Do it as an expression of the wealth you gain from the discussion that we're having today, rather than the emptiness inside you to try to fill it somehow or other. Dharma doesn't mean to be lazy. It means to be active, dynamic, competitive, with integrity. To earn with integrity, and to spend with compassion. Yes, there will be so much competition, but we have principles of what lines we don't cross in our need to compete with others. Integrity means that we have sacred ideals. And we embrace those sacred ideals. Even if there are temptations wherein we can earn so much if we give them up. Or even if there is fear that I may lose so much if I give them up. But the greatness of a person is to live with that integrity. And it is that integrity that brings true fulfillment. It is that integrity which is the legacy that we could give to our children. I'd like to tell you a very strange story. I wasn't planning on saying it, but I don't really know what I was planning on saying anyway. I was brought up near Chicago. And when I was young, I heard so many stories, because Chicago has a lot of stories. There was someone named Al Capone. You all heard of him? He was a gangster, probably the most famous gangster in American history, yes. He had a lawyer whose name was Easy Eddie. He was such a good lawyer that he could just manipulate the law in so many ways that nobody could touch Al Capone or his leaders. You know, they would kill people and they would exploit people and they would do so many things, bootlegging in those days and prostitution, and they would get him on charges, but they couldn't touch him because he had this Easy Eddie. And Easy Eddie was given so much money. He had his own airplane. He had a house which was practically a property like a city block in downtown Chicago worth massive fortunes. He had boats. He had everything. And he had a son. And his son could go anywhere, could have anything he wanted, anytime. But Easy Eddie was thinking, there's one thing I have not given my son. An example of integrity. He has everything material that he could ever want, but he doesn't have a father that he could actually in his heart be proud of. And he came to the realization, the only way I could give him an example that he could be proud of, I have to testify against these people who I have been supporting and who are causing so much harm to others. And he did. And you know if he did, he knew if he did, it was just a matter of time till he would be shot dead. And many of these prominent gangsters went to prison on the basis of his testimonies. And one day when he was driving his car, another car drove by with machine guns and dozens of bullets in his body, and in an alleyway of Chicago, he laid on the street dead. He paid a heavy price because he wanted to give his son something that was greater than money and airplanes and cars and clothes and jewels. A legacy of integrity. I'll tell you another story. There was a person named Butch. He was also from Chicago. And he was in the United States Air Force in World War II. And he was in the Pacific on one of those aircraft destroyers fighting against the Japanese Army, Navy, and Air Force. And a squadron or a whole group of airplanes flew off to go somewhere on a mission. And he happened to see that whoever was taking care of the planes didn't put enough fuel in his engine. So he had to leave all the other airplanes that were going somewhere and turn back all alone. And on his way back, he saw something that horrified him. He saw a whole group of Japanese planes that were coming to bomb the ship where there were thousands and thousands of his sailors. And the ship didn't know they were coming. Nobody knew they were coming. And he didn't have any way to contact anyone. So what he did is he flew into about 15 fighter jets. He flew right into them and was shooting at them. 1 against 15, and they were shooting back, and he was shooting back, and they were shooting back, and he shot down several of them. And then he ran out of ammunition, and he started flying into them and knocking off their wings. And finally, these 15 fighter jets of the Japanese Air Force, they thought, this man's totally crazy, he's insane. And they all flew away. And his plane was very, very much beaten down, and he landed on his jet, and everybody saw what was happening. He was given the first Congressional Medal of Honor in the United States Air Force in World War II. Because he had this higher principle. The higher principle, he was willing to give up his own life for the sake of the cause of all those other people on that ship. The most interesting part of these two stories is this person's name was Butch O'Hare.